Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
It sounds fake.
It's just so disgusting.
People think her kids are fake. They think they're AI.
It was a dreadful thing to do and actually completely wrong.
Take a listen.
This scandal comes as no surprise. Speculation about the children has been simmering for years.
I was instantly enraged from this 10-second clip. It just annoyed me. It doesn't make you sound like a better mom. It makes you sound like really kind of into yourself in a way.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
What if one of the most celebrated royal births wasn't a birth at all? At least not in the way the world was told. From the moment Meghan Markle and Prince Harry introduced baby Archie to the world, the story felt off, shrouded in secrecy, flooded with contradictions, and drenched in drama. It wasn't the joyful, polished fairy tale we'd seen with William and Kate. It was something else, something calculated. The press was locked out, protocols were shattered, and now the cracks in that carefully curated birth story are starting to collapse under the weight of leaked insider reports, conflicting timelines, and a growing demand for transparency. At the center of this media firestorm is conservative commentator Candace Owens, who just took a blowtorch to Meghan's pregnancy story. But she's not the only one. Medical experts, hospital insiders, and even longtime royal watchers are now speaking up, daring to ask the one question no one in Buckingham Palace wants to answer. Was Archie's birth fabricated? Because when you start to pull apart the pieces of Meghan and Harry's version of events, the entire timeline starts to unravel. And what's left behind isn't a heartwarming story of royal rebellion, but a blueprint for media manipulation, image control, and possibly royal deception. This isn't just a conspiracy theory. This is a battle for credibility, one that's now reached the pages of Harry's own memoir, the walls of Portland Hospital, and the very foundation of royal tradition itself. And what comes next may change how you see the royal family forever. Prince Harry's memoir was meant to offer clarity, a personal, emotional retelling of the most intimate moments of his life. But when it came to the birth of his son Archie, it did the exact opposite. Instead of closing the chapter on speculation, it cracked the door wide open. In his best-selling book, Harry describes Meghan giving birth at the luxurious Portland Hospital in London. According to his version, Meghan received not one, but 2 epidurals during labor. Within hours, the couple supposedly left the hospital, returning to Frogmore Cottage to rest with their newborn in peace. On paper, it reads like a polished, romantic version of events, but to anyone familiar with actual childbirth, especially medical professionals, it reads like fiction. Let's start with the epidurals. An epidural isn't like popping a pill. It's a carefully administered spinal procedure involving a catheter inserted near the spinal cord. It remains in place to deliver steady pain relief throughout labor. Swapping out an epidural mid-delivery, not only is it incredibly rare, it's risky, and in most cases, unnecessary. Doctors were quick to flag this detail as bizarre, even reckless. 1 epidural is standard. 2? That's either a medical emergency or a narrative flourish meant to add drama. Then there's the timeline. According to Harry, Meghan was discharged and back home within just a couple of hours of giving birth. That's not a detail easily overlooked. Standard postnatal care involves monitoring the mother's vitals, managing potential complications like bleeding or infection, and conducting thorough newborn evaluations. Even in the most straightforward births, most hospitals, especially high-end ones like Portland, require a minimum of 24 hours of observation. But somehow, Meghan, after supposedly enduring 2 invasive spinal procedures and delivering her first child, was up, out, and whisked across London in record time. And don't forget, Frogmore Cottage isn't just around the corner. It's nearly an hour's drive, assuming no traffic. Add in discharge paperwork, post-birth care, and newborn prep, and Harry's compressed timeline becomes almost laughable. So the question becomes, why include a version of events that's medically implausible? Was Harry simply mistaken? Was it a literary stretch? Or was it the beginning of a narrative deliberately crafted to maintain a sense of control and privacy at the cost of believability? Because if this first piece of the story doesn't hold up under scrutiny, what happens when we start examining the rest of the puzzle? And what we find next about the palace's role and Meghan's media strategy raises even bigger questions. The British royal family doesn't just have traditions, they have protocols. And when it comes to royal births, those protocols are practically sacred. From the formal notice displayed on an easel outside Buckingham Palace to carefully timed press releases, every step is choreographed down to the minute. That's why what happened with Archie's arrival wasn't just unusual, it was explosive. For the first time in modern royal history, the press was left completely in the dark. No press pool outside the hospital, no photo call on the steps, no timeline updates, nothing. Instead, Meghan and Harry vanished from public view. And when the announcement finally came, it contradicted itself within hours. In one version of events, the palace told the media Meghan had gone into labor, only for it to later be revealed that Archie had already been born. The public was deliberately misled, but the confusion didn't end there. Meghan later offered multiple explanations for the secrecy, at times citing privacy, then claiming complications, and later suggesting they simply didn't want the pressure of the spotlight. 3 different stories. One supposedly simple event. Why all the contradictions? If Meghan and Harry just wanted a private birth, why not say that clearly and consistently? Why hide behind shifting excuses that only fueled suspicion? Even seasoned royal reporters, many of whom had been sympathetic to the couple, admitted they were blindsided. Behind the scenes, there was chaos. Some journalists were tipped off that Meghan had already delivered, while others were told she was still in labor. Press offices scrambled to adjust their statements, and what should have been a moment of joy turned into a PR disaster. But it wasn't just about press logistics. This level of confusion shattered long-held expectations. For decades, royal births had been symbols of continuity, stability, and transparency. By bulldozing through that system, Meghan and Harry didn't just modernize the monarchy, they broke it. And here's the real question. Was this chaos accidental, or was it strategic? Because some now believe the inconsistent narrative wasn't just clumsy, it was controlled. A smokescreen to divert attention from something far more complicated behind the scenes. And once you start looking at the hospital where all of this supposedly happened, the inconsistencies only deepen. The building that should have confirmed the timeline ended up unraveling it. If Buckingham Palace was the stage for the royal birth, Portland Hospital was supposed to be the backstage, a place of calm, discretion, and luxury. But instead of tying the story together, this 5-star facility unraveled it. Harry painted a vivid picture of Portland in his memoir: hidden elevators, private suites, late-night gourmet meals, and hushed hallways fit for royalty. But according to those who actually worked there, much of it simply never happened. Hospital insiders, speaking anonymously for fear of backlash, have directly contradicted key elements of Harry's story. For starters, the so-called secret elevator he described, non-existent. Staff members confirmed that while Portland has private wings and VIP corridors, there's nothing remotely resembling a hidden lift system used for covert royal exits. It was a flourish, dramatic, cinematic, but ultimately fiction. Then came the late-night food delivery story. Harry fondly recalls ordering Meghan's favorite meal after the birth, painting a cozy, almost sitcom-like moment of domestic bliss. But insiders say the timing doesn't add up. Portland may serve gourmet dishes, but it doesn't operate like a 24/7 hotel kitchen, taking personalized orders on a whim. If Harry was ordering sushi or tacos at 2 a.m., it wasn't from hospital staff. And certainly not in the way he described it. But these aren't just petty inconsistencies. They point to something bigger, a carefully curated version of events designed to control the narrative. Because if you can't trust the details, the elevator, the meals, the timeline, what else has been embellished? One particularly telling leak came from a longtime staff member who claimed Meghan's stay was less dramatic and more routine than what the couple portrayed. No heightened security beyond standard VIP protocol. No medical emergencies, no cloak and dagger exits. Just another high-profile birth, handled with the usual discretion, until the media storm began. This revelation undercuts the entire idea that Harry and Meghan were forced into secrecy or fear. If the hospital ran business as usual, then the couple's extreme privacy measures weren't about external pressure. They were self-imposed, strategic. And that brings us to a deeply uncomfortable question. Were these inconsistencies accidental or intentional? Because the more the couple tried to control the narrative, the more it slipped out of their hands. But things really spiral once you factor in the footage rumors. The alleged hospital twerking clip, the talk of private filming for future Netflix documentaries. That's when the story takes a hard turn, from confusion into spectacle. And that's exactly where we're going next. As if the birth story wasn't already strange enough, this is where the entire saga veers into full-on surreal. Whispers began circulating in online circles and commentary videos, then exploded into mainstream discourse about an alleged video, a private recording supposedly filmed inside the hospital room of Meghan Markle twerking. Yes, twerking, while in labor, or at least claiming to be. The theory? That Meghan was filming intimate, highly stylized footage for a future documentary, possibly for Netflix, possibly for later authenticity use. At first, it sounded like internet satire. But then, Candace Owens brought it into the spotlight, sarcastically tearing into the idea during her show, asking why anyone would even think to stage a moment like that during childbirth, let alone press record. Her criticism wasn't just about the absurdity of the rumor, it was about what it symbolized, the perception that Meghan was curating a character rather than living a real moment. And here's where it gets uncomfortably plausible. We know Meghan and Harry had a lucrative deal with Netflix. We know they've released footage from private moments, including home videos, wedding clips, and voice memos. So is it really so far-fetched to think they may have filmed moments during the birth, just in case? And if not actual labor footage, then reenactments or staged behind-the-scenes clips meant to feel real? The issue here isn't the video itself, it's the contradiction it creates. On one hand, Meghan and Harry have consistently cited a desperate need for privacy, for retreat, for shielding their family from the spotlight. But on the other hand, they've licensed their personal moments to the highest bidder, creating highly polished documentaries that blur the line between intimacy and performance. If the twerking tape or anything like it exists, it raises massive questions. Was this about authenticity or optics? Were these moments recorded for posterity? Or were they audition tapes for brand sympathy? And most importantly, was the audience ever meant to believe this was raw and real? Because here's the thing, if you're playing both sides, demanding privacy while filming the most private moments, eventually the illusion shatters. And when it does, everything starts to feel staged, even childbirth. And that's why the rumors won't die. Because once people believe they've been manipulated, they start questioning everything, including the parts that used to feel sacred, like the miracle of birth. But beyond rumors and reaction videos, what truly breaks this story wide open is the science. Because when medical experts look at Harry and Meghan's timeline, their reaction isn't laughter, it's an alarm. When Prince Harry casually mentioned in his memoir that Meghan received 2 epidurals during labor, most readers skimmed right past it. But to medical professionals, that one detail set off alarm bells louder than any media headline ever could. An epidural isn't just a painkiller, it's a complex medical procedure. A thin catheter is inserted near the spinal cord, delivering a continuous stream of anesthesia to block pain during labor. It's delicate, invasive, and strictly monitored. And once it's in, it stays in. The idea that someone would undergo 2 separate epidural placements, especially mid-labor, is not just uncommon. It's dangerous. Doctors were quick to call this out. To switch epidurals mid-delivery would require removing the catheter and reinserting a new one. That involves additional risk of infection, complications, and spinal injury. Most OB/GYNs would only consider it if the first epidural completely failed. And even then, they'd try alternative methods before jumping to a full redo. So why did Harry write it that way? Was it a misunderstanding of what happened in the delivery room? A dramatic flourish added by a ghostwriter? Or something else entirely? Like a fictionalized birth meant to sound intense without being medically scrutinized. And the inconsistencies don't stop there. Harry also claims Meghan was back home with newborn Archie within hours of giving birth. This is where the timeline goes from implausible to impossible. Standard postnatal care for mothers who receive even 1 epidural includes extended monitoring, usually a minimum of 24 hours. Nurses check for bleeding, infections, mobility issues, and adverse reactions to the anesthesia. With 2 epidurals, the risks double. It's not just rare for someone to go home early. It's against standard medical protocol. And remember, Meghan supposedly suffered complications related to preeclampsia, a serious condition marked by dangerously high blood pressure, often requiring extended hospitalization and round-the-clock observation. For doctors, hearing that a preeclampsia patient, with multiple epidurals, left the hospital in just a few hours is like hearing someone walked away from open-heart surgery and hopped on a flight. It doesn't add up, at all. One OB/GYN bluntly stated, either Harry misunderstood everything about labor, or the story was altered to fit a narrative. And that's the problem. When the most basic medical details don't align with real-world experience, it casts doubt on everything else. But there's more at stake here than just a sloppy memoir. Meghan has publicly positioned herself as an advocate for maternal health, calling for better care, longer observation, and respect for mothers in crisis. So if her own birth story contradicts those very principles, it raises a deeply uncomfortable question. Is she misrepresenting her experience? And if so, why? Because either Meghan Markle went through a medically reckless birth that no doctor would ethically sign off on, or the story she and Harry told the world simply isn't true. And when that truth begins to unravel, what's left behind isn't just confusion, it's betrayal. And here's where it gets even worse. We haven't even touched the insider accounts yet. The people inside the hospital, the ones who say it didn't happen like that at all. And once their voices enter the story, everything the public thought they knew about Archie's birth starts to fall apart. By this point, the official story is already wobbling. 2 epidurals, a same-day discharge, and conflicting media statements. But it's the whispers from inside Portland Hospital that blow the whole thing wide open. Because when staff members start contradicting the couple's claims, we're no longer talking about speculation. We're talking about a potential fabrication. Multiple anonymous insiders have described the atmosphere surrounding Meghan's alleged hospital stay as uneventful. No heightened security beyond what's normally arranged for VIP clients. no frantic scenes, no last-minute elevator shutdowns or secret wings being sealed off. One nurse even claimed it was just another celebrity birth. They made it sound like a covert operation, but it wasn't. Then there's the late-night gourmet meal anecdote from Harry's memoir, a moment meant to humanize the story. But kitchen staff reportedly didn't recall receiving or fulfilling any such request. Portland does offer upscale food, yes, but they don't run a 24/7 hotel-style service where a prince can just summon steak and soufflé in the middle of the night. That detail, like so many others, feels scripted, rehearsed, convenient. And let's not forget the bizarre secret elevator Harry described, allegedly used to whisk them away unnoticed, but hospital workers insist no such system exists. There are private exits, sure. VIP protocols? Absolutely. But hidden infrastructure? It's a fantasy, or worse, a creative rewrite. Even more damning is the timeline clash. According to some sources, Meghan wasn't even at Portland for the full labor experience. One insider suggested her visit was brief, perhaps just for photos or staging purposes. That aligns with a growing theory, that some parts of the birth story may have been carefully prearranged for optics rather than necessity. Now enter Candace Owens. Her scathing commentary didn't just throw gasoline on the fire. It reframed the conversation entirely. Owens focused less on the gossip and more on the strategy, calling out what she saw as a deliberate campaign of misinformation. According to her, every detail, every odd twist, wasn't just clumsy storytelling. It was PR manipulation designed to manufacture a version of events that could generate sympathy, fend off critics, and shield the couple from scrutiny. And if she's even half right, that's a scandal of royal proportions. Because here's the thing, royal stories are supposed to be airtight, carefully worded, vetted. Once you find cracks in the narrative, the entire facade starts to fall. And what's left behind? A very uncomfortable question. Was this just an exaggerated memory? Or was it a staged narrative? And if Meghan and Harry really were crafting a storyline, who exactly was it for? The public? Netflix? The monarchy? Each conflicting account, each insider contradiction, each inconsistent timeline drives a stake deeper into the heart of this story. And the deeper it goes, the harder it becomes to believe that this was simply a series of innocent mistakes. Because when even the hospital doesn't back up your version of events, the last pillar holding your story upright is trust. And once that collapses, once the audience starts to believe you've lied about this, it's only a matter of time before they start questioning everything else. And that's when the stakes shift from a confusing timeline to a royal credibility crisis. By now, the contradictions surrounding Archie's birth have done more than just confuse the public. They've cracked the foundation of trust that Meghan and Harry spent years building. And the consequences? They stretch far beyond media backlash or tabloid headlines. They strike at the very core of royal identity, credibility, lineage, and the future of the monarchy itself. Let's start with credibility. Once celebrated as the couple who broke tradition for love and truth, Meghan and Harry are now facing a crisis of their own making. The inconsistencies in Harry's memoir, the timeline breakdown, the questionable hospital details, all of it suggests one of two things: either gross negligence in how they told their story, or a deliberate campaign of misdirection. Neither scenario flatters them. And in the court of public opinion, confusion quickly becomes betrayal. Critics who were once dismissed as fringe are now being vindicated. The phrase, "where there's smoke, there's fire," is echoing across social media, podcasts, and commentary shows. And the fallout is severe, because when trust in a public figure is shattered, everything they say going forward is filtered through doubt. Every charity appearance, every statement about authenticity or maternal advocacy gets weighed against the question, but are they even telling the truth about their own child? Now, zoom out. This isn't just about two public figures and their brand. This is about lineage. Archie and Lilibet aren't just celebrity children. They're royals. They hold titles, Prince and Princess of the United Kingdom, and they're in the official line of succession to the throne. But here's the problem. If the palace can't confirm a transparent and medically verified birth, what does that mean for their status? There are growing whispers inside royal circles, some now not so silent, calling for the removal of Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession, unless Meghan and Harry provide concrete evidence that they were born as claimed. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's constitutional pressure. If Buckingham Palace is expected to uphold centuries-old tradition and legitimacy, it cannot afford to be vague on something as fundamental as royal births. Titles are tied to heritage, and heritage requires proof. And here's where it gets even more serious. If the couple can't or won't put the rumors to rest with irrefutable documentation, they don't just damage their own image, they endanger the credibility of the institution itself. The monarchy may have survived divorces, abdications, and scandals, but questions about lineage and legitimacy, that's playing with fire. Behind the scenes, sources claim palace officials are growing increasingly uneasy. The longer the story spirals, the more pressure they face to act. Some insiders suggest quiet legal consultations have already taken place, exploring how to safeguard the royal line without igniting a media war. It's a tightrope between tradition and modern optics, and it's one Harry and Meghan are forcing the monarchy to walk without a safety net. And here's the brutal irony. In trying to control their story, the Sussexes may have handed critics their most powerful weapon yet, a question mark over everything they represent. What started as a campaign for independence, privacy, and authenticity has now backfired into a full-blown credibility crisis that could strip their children of royal titles and dismantle their public legacy. Because in the end, this isn't about twerking rumors, media blackouts, or memoir embellishments. This is about the cost of dishonesty. And the question haunting every palace hallway and PR office right now is simple, chilling, and unavoidable. If they lied about this, what else are they lying about? And the answer might shake the monarchy to its core. At the start, it felt like a modern love story. The rebellious prince and the independent actress, breaking royal tradition to forge a new path. But now, as the details unravel and the inconsistencies pile up, that fairy tale has begun to rot from the inside. From the moment Meghan and Harry stepped back from royal duties, they insisted their story was one of truth, vulnerability, and authenticity. But if the most sacred chapter, the birth of their first child, was distorted, embellished, or even falsified, then what's left of the story they've been selling? The questions aren't going away, not from the public, not from the press, and definitely not from within the palace walls. Because this isn't just about narrative control, it's about royal legitimacy, constitutional integrity, and the trust of millions who cheered for Archie's arrival, without ever knowing whether the story behind it was real. Every lie, if that's what these contradictions truly are, becomes a fracture. Every dodged question, a deeper crack. And eventually, even the most glamorous fairy tales collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. What Meghan and Harry once framed as a private moment is now a public reckoning. Their memoirs, their media deals, their documentaries, all under renewed scrutiny. The public doesn't want drama anymore. It wants answers. And without those answers, every tearful interview, every heartfelt speech, every staged photo feels like just another scene in a well-rehearsed performance. Candace Owens may have amplified the conversation, but the doubt was already there, festering. The hospital staff who broke the silence, the medical experts saw red flags, the timeline that never made sense. Piece by piece, the curtain has been pulled back. And behind it, not a royal miracle, not a media smear campaign, but a haunting question that refuses to die. What are they hiding? Because if even part of this birth story is false, then Meghan and Harry didn't just mislead the world. They betrayed the very foundation of the legacy they claimed to protect. And in the monarchy, once the spell is broken, it doesn't get put back together. Not without a price, not without a reckoning.